So as AI models get more and more powerful, we're hitting this massive wall. How do we actually know if they're any good? Today, we're going to dive into a pretty wild new solution where we use AI to judge other AIs.
I mean, think about it like this. You give an AI some complex, open-ended task, right? Like, write a compelling story, or summarize this dense research paper. How do you grade that? Is it accurate? Is it creative? Does it even make sense? That seemingly simple question? Well, it gets to the very heart of a huge bottleneck in AI development.
For the longest time, we were kind of stuck with two bad options. On one side, you've got human experts, and yeah, they're the gold standard for judging quality, but it's super slow, super expensive, and you just can't scale it. On the other side, you've got these older, automated metrics. They're fast, they're cheap, but they pretty much miss the point entirely. They're just looking at word overlap, not, meaning or quality. So you're stuck. Neither one is good enough for how fast AI is moving today.
And that struggle leads us to Act 1 of our story, the first big breakthrough. What if? What if we could just use our absolute best AI as a single, tireless evaluator? This is where we meet the lone judge. The big idea here is called LLM as a judge. It's pretty straightforward, actually. You take a really powerful model, you give it some clear instructions, a rubric basically, and you tell it, okay, now score or compare the answers from these other AIs. You're essentially creating this automated, scalable version of a human expert who can give you really nuanced feedback, like right now.
And get this, it actually works. It works remarkably well. When you ask a model like GPT-4 to play judge, its decisions line up with what human judges prefer with a correlation of 80 to 90%. That is incredibly high. It made it a real game changer for quickly testing and ranking new models.
But here comes the twist. The lone judge isn't perfect, not by a long shot. Turns out, it can be tricked. These AI judges, they have their own little biases. They tend to give better scores to longer answers or answers that sound kind of like something they would write. As this one paper famously pointed out, you can write a totally nonsense answer that still gets a high score just because it sounds persuasive. So yeah, it became pretty clear really fast that a single AI perspective just wasn't going to cut it.
Which naturally leads us to Act 2. To solve the problem of a single biased judge, researchers asked a pretty logical question. If one judge isn't enough, what if we create an AI jury? And you can see right here where this fits in our story. We're leveling up. We're moving away from the lone wolf judge and entering the era of multi-agent judges. The idea is simple. Have multiple AIs interact with each other to come to a much more solid, robust conclusion. A fantastic example of this in action is a framework they call court-eval. It literally sets up a little AI courtroom. First, you have a judge agent that gives an initial score. Then, a prosecutor agent jumps in to challenge that score and find all the flaws. A defender agent argues back to support the original answer. And then finally, the judge takes it all in and revises its verdict. It's this back and forth, this structured debate, that really helps iron out those individual biases. And court-eval is just one way to do it. There are all these different flavors of AI juries. You've got chat-eval, which is more like a collaborative brainstorming session with different AI personas. There's another called D-Date, which specifically has a devil's advocate AI whose only job is to poke holes in the argument. So, while the styles are different, look, the big idea is exactly the same. Use multiple perspectives to get a much more reliable judgment. Okay, so we've got our AI juries. But the game is changing, fast. We're not just evaluating a block of text anymore. Now we have to evaluate these autonomous AI agents that are doing really complex multi-step tasks, and for that, you need a whole new kind of judge.
Here's the critical shift in thinking. It's no longer enough to just look at the final answer. For an AI that's, say, writing code or trying to book a flight online, the final result doesn't tell you the whole story. You have to judge the entire journey, the reasoning, the tools it used, every single action it took. It's not just what did you get, but how in the world did you get there?
And this is where the agent as a judge enters the scene. And seriously, you should think of it like an AI detective. It's an autonomous agent itself, and it's armed with tools so it can observe and critique another agent's entire problem-solving process. It's not just grading the final exam. It's watching how the student did all the homework to get there.
And the results are, honestly, they're kind of mind-blowing.
When they tested this on really complex coding tasks, the judgment from one of these agent-as-a-judge systems disagreed with the consensus of 5 human experts only 0.3% of the time. Think about that. That means it's not just as good as one human expert, it's as consistent as a whole team of them. And that's because it can tirelessly check every single step of the process.
So, okay, this is all super cool, but why should you really care? What does this mean outside of a research lab? Well, this evolution in how we grade AIs has some profound real-world implications. Just imagine this. In medicine, you could spin up a panel of AI judges with doctor and researcher personas to double-check clinical reports for accuracy. In law, you could simulate a whole courtroom debate to stress test an AI's legal arguments. Or in education, you could evaluate a new learning tool from both a teacher's perspective on accuracy and a student's perspective on clarity. You can tailor these judge panels for basically any need. It's incredibly powerful.
Of course, we have to be realistic here. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. This technology is powerful, for sure, but it is not a silver bullet. It's far from a solved problem, and there are still some major challenges we have to tackle. The big hurdles really boil down to a few key issues. First, bias is still a thing. These agents can favor their own kind or still get tricked. Then there's cost. Running a whole team of advanced AIs isn't cheap. And this one's a biggie, domain expertise. Giving an AI a doctor persona doesn't actually give it a medical degree, you know? And that all leads back to this really tricky fundamental question. If the AIs are the judges, how do we make sure the judges themselves are any good?
So let's zoom out, let's bring this all home. What's the one big thing you should take away from this whole journey? From the lone judge to the AI detective.
Here's the bottom line. The idea of intelligence evaluating intelligence isn't just some neat trick. It is an absolutely crucial step if we're ever going to build AI that we can actually trust. It creates this powerful feedback loop. By having AIs critique each other, we can spot flaws, we can improve their performance, and we can scale up development in a way that's safe and reliable, something that was just never possible before.
Which leaves us with one final, fascinating question to chew on. As these AI judging systems get more and more sophisticated, solving this problem of meta-evaluation becomes the next grand challenge. So I'll leave you with this. If AIs become the ultimate arbiters of quality, who or what will be judging the judges?